Oh, this is probably the first time I'm watching
Hello.
this with Chrono.
Yeah.
So strange. But yeah, we watch Bumbles McFumbles quite a bit. He makes silly videos about stuff. And since Chrono wasn't here for those other videos, if he wants, he can react to them with Rain at any time. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to head into this, and we'll see what the heck he is. I've never played Battletoads, not the new one or the old one or any of them, because I was more focused on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who I think are better. Well, for one, they're not named after acne. For some...
I think I played Battletoads one time. My older brother had a emulator on his computer.
Mm-hmm.
And he had Battletoads on it.
Oh yes, the Battle of Toads.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to head into this. If you like what we're doing, you know what to do. You know how to help me. You must help me. So that I can mainly react for you guys, but yeah. And also make other stuff that's really
Help
cool and fun.
everybody.
Some game franchises have massive shoes to fill, the type that leave developers daunted to even give it a try. Not every Tom, Dick, and Harry has what it takes to make the next drawn to life, and that can leave franchises laying dormant for a long time out of fear of letting down the fan base who's been waiting for such a game to be made. But there's nothing worse than a beloved franchise coming back after an elongated hiatus, and then you find out that it wasn't worth the wait. You leave the door
that's
unlocked
really
for
sad.
Mario Strikers for over a decade, a few robberies later, and they come home without their pants on. Fan expectations can have a lot to do with what games are made, both in terms of how much people want the games and how much developers don't want to deal with people who want the game. Face it, if a franchise lays dormant long enough, people are going to build up very specific expectations for what the return should look like. And if it doesn't look like that, no one's going to be happy. One franchise with an impenetrable reputation like that is Battletoads. The NES original, all the way back in 1991, was a generation-defining game.
Was
if you
it?
see someone with a sunken-in look in their eyes, start humming the Turbo Tunnels theme to send them into a full-blown panic. Its reputation is one that would make any developer wary to touch it, because how do you live up to a classic like that? Well, Microsoft, Rare, and Delilah Games gave it a whirl back in 2020 with Battletoads for Xbox One and PC, and, to me at least, managed to knock it out of the park.
Really? Okay, here's some of the Toad cards. These are all the Toad and Frog cards. I don't think he showed Totally... No, Totally Awesome is right there. Give me 1 second. I'll go back 1 second.
One and PC, and, to me at least, managed to knock it out of the park.
Yeah, these are a bunch of the frog cards. Bill's a frog. The Draw a Frog. There's Totally Awesome right there. Just right there.
Oh, the XYZ card?
Yeah, that's Totally Awesome.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't remember what it does. I just remember some people don't like Totally Awesome. This sucks. What is it, Petra? What sucks now?
So, I've been cold calling people in my phone book at random for hours.
Why?
You know, to try to gauge the popularity of the Battletoads, but every time I tell them the names of the Battletoads, they tell me to call a dermatologist. Sounds like these people need a history lesson. Battletoads is the creation of Rareware, one of the most innovative, creative, and
I didn't know it was their
developers in the history
creation.
of video games. Every game they made was made their way.
They made
their style and sense of
I didn't
humor.
realize they made
Sales
this.
numbers be damned. They were gonna make a blast core and see what happens.
Oh.
They managed to overcome the stigma of being British and created one of the greatest gaming catalogs of all time. And one of the crown jewels of that catalog was Battletoads. See, back in the 80s, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were everywhere.
Yeah, they
TVs,
were.
Toy stores, video games.
Let me put it this way. My father is the one who showed me the movies of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And he even had a toy. And he even had some toys that he had as a kid from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was that big. And he was supposed to be a manly man or whatever. He's one of those people that thinks certain stuff is just for nerds. Like, he didn't believe me that Two Towers, made by Led Zeppelin, was based off of, how should I put this? It's based off of one of the books of Lord of the Rings. That's where the name comes from. Oh, again, your most secret stash. Rob Platty? What? Get next week's wedding skins. Oh my god, it'll be fine, Petra, that you can't get the skins for Marvel Rivals. They're not that important.
Radio City Music Hall.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Darkest of Nightmares. The green teams were on
Darkest
scene,
of
and everybody
Nightmares.
wanted a slice of that hot pizza.
Who's your
pie.
favorite turtle?
The TMNT knockoff is a genre in and of itself. People were desperate to find the combination that yielded the same success.
Oh yeah,
I think it was the one with the red. Not the red one. It was the orange one. The one that was actually kind of funny. Is that
You mean
Michelangelo?
You mean the orange one? Yeah, that's Mikey. That's Michelangelo.
Yeah. Yeah, he's my favorite one.
Yeah, same with Fable. He loves Michelangelo. Oh, it's for your fiance? Then I can kind of understand you wanting to get it really hard for them. Because when you're in love, yeah.
Turtles did, and most people.
But yeah, I can understand. There were a lot of ripoffs who just really wanted to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for obvious reasons. They were just really successful. The problem is, people don't really get why the TMNT were so good. It was because of the stories and the characters. You can make a story about a fish man, but if you write it well enough, people are gonna love it.
At least started by looking at the name. Dinosaurs, but they're not for pussies anymore.
What?
Mummies, but they're
Oh, yeah.
alive.
Oh yeah, Mummy's Alive. I need to show you the intro to that, because it's amazing. The Mummy's Alive. They did have really cool designs, though. That makes me kind of want to use them for maybe a Sentai team or something. There's also Gargoyles was actually pretty good from what I remember.
Gargoyles was probably one of the best ones.
Yeah.
Cowboys.
What?
More cowboys.
What?
Dinosaur aliens. That's all
Cool.
I got. We take the president's dog and we make him buff.
What?
I'm just gonna start naming some things I can see right now.
Okay,
Samurai.
Oh, Samurai Cats.
Samurai
Pizza Cats. Maybe we'll watch that eventually. Because I feel like that's actually a fun one to watch, because that's silly.
Cats. Bikers.
On Mars.
From
Oh,
Mars.
the Barker Mice from Mars.
And maybe they're mice.
Maybe
Skeleton
they're
Warriors.
Skeleton Warriors.
Troll dolls, but they're for boys this time.
What?
Okay, I think I earned another pass at the dinosaur idea.
The dinosaur idea isn't bad.
Just wasn't done right.
Yeah.
Street Sharks?
Street Sharks.
1990, the turtles were reaching
Basically,
their
they're
peak.
just trying to do the same thing in the case of adding adjectives to an animal's name. In more or less. Because it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those are 3 adjectives onto the word of turtles. But they didn't really get it.
The first movie coming out and their merch output at maximum, Rare decided to cut in and try their hand at emulating the turtles.
Okay.
Give them credit, they started off on the right foot, just replaced the reptiles with amphibians and knocked that cast of 4 down to 3. So what is the backstory of the Battletoads?
Yeah.
Well, depending on the medium, they're either a team of testers at a game company who play the game of Battletoads, which thanks to VR technology is actually a window into an alternate universe that they get sucked into after a rogue programmer in the dark use a virus to trap them as the Toads and lock them into nightmarishly tough levels. There are 3 Toads that punch. This was explained in the prequel comic, which led directly into
prequel
Battletoads
comic.
for
I
NES,
can't believe
released
this.
in 1991. Now, 1991 was an incredibly interesting time for the NES. With the turn of the decade also came the turn to newer and better hardware.
Yeah?
1989 marked the release of the Sega Genesis, and the Super Nintendo was released the next year in 1990, meaning that 16-bit was here, and the cell was a lot harder to cut that in half and go back to 8-bit. Now, NES games would still be made for years and years after the SNES's release. It would be stupid to just disregard the built-in player base. But to make the game stand out on a release calendar, you had to do something big. Rare decided to launch a 2-pronged attack to make Battletoads unique. Number 1, this would be the most impressive game on the entire console. Visuals would be more detailed and mind-blowing than anything else on the console, with pseudo 3D effects, shifting perspectives, and the highest quality sprites possible. Part 2 was trauma. Battletoads is known for one thing above anything else, and that's its difficulty. The game's difficulty goes past hard and into unreal, leaving people wondering if the game was even possible. This was such an important part of the game's identity that it was actually included as a plot point in the prequel comics.
I think if I remember correctly, this is like one of those games that if you died at any point, you'd have to start the whole game over again.
Oh, that's horrible. I hate that.
Yeah. I think that's what made the game so hard for people.
Yeah, that's understandable.
As much. This
The
game was
original
meant to
Max
serve as a
Payne was
graduation
exactly the
test
same
for the
way.
NES,
Oh.
a game made for people
Damn.
who
Yeah.
had dumped days and days into
'Cause there was
mastering the
no such thing as
console. You
save
want to
states
prove
at
to
that
everybody
point.
that you're a real video game master? Try Battletoads on for size. This was
Oh.
also done to encourage purchasing the game over simply renting it. If you buy the game, you get as much time as you need to master its difficulty.
Oh,
If
that
you
was the
rent
reason just to
game, you
combat
have to return it at
renting?
the end of the week and never
Yeah.
sleep soundly again. That difficulty manifested itself in several ways.
I hate how
Game
people...
structure. The
Can I
game
just say, I've always hated how people tried to combat renting games. Because it was some of the stupidest ways, you know, like, oh, we're gonna put this code in just so you can only play multiplayer for no.
Yeah.
And they all tried a bunch of different ways to combat renting. I mean, rental stores have more or less gone the way of the dinosaur because of online
yeah.
stores. But it's also because there's a lot of discounts now. Also,
Oh yeah, there's more discounts now than there ever been.
Mm-hmm. Like, most people aren't buying games when they're full price now. They're buying when they're on sale.
Mm-hmm.
change genres with almost every level,
Or
going
they're
from
just getting
beat
them
'em
for
ups
free if
to
they're having a
racing games to
subscription
oh,
or
I hate
Yeah.
my life at the drop of
Oh.
a hat.
Oh,
meaning
I
that there
hate-
was no surefire way to make sure you were prepared for what came next. Some
Oh.
levels like Turbo Tunnels, Intruder Excluder, and Klinger Winger show off that the difficulty, while intensely high, was also completely learnable, so long as
Oh.
you practice every stage dozens of times. On the flip side, stages like Surf City, Volkmeyer's Inferno, and Rat Race go to show that maybe being the most difficult game isn't necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
These levels are the ones that nobody talks about since they're after turbo tunnels, and they go way past the point of difficult and fall backwards into ball-bustingly unfair.
Wow.
It's a good thing they're in the latter half of the game, though, which meant that games journalists never got to them,
No.
and they ended up liking the game. Like, really liking the game. This is
Wow. Yeah, games journals have not been great. We'll see.
Yeah, they never have been.
Like, let me put it this way. Games, like, they hate the fact that they're a dying medium, and they know that no one listens to them anymore, which is why they're putting out more content than ever to basically just use shock content, which is something I do want to have a talk of.
I want to say this. If they would actually hire in, like, actual gamers, like, people who would actually play games for a long period of time, for their journals, and actually give a fair review on games like this, I think they would probably get a lot more better ratings on their stuff, and not be such a dying medium.
Yeah, they don't give more they mostly just give good ratings, which is usually a 7 out of 5, like on IGN, because they want to appease the person. They want to appease the big company so that they don't get, like, not the free stuff or the promotions that they get from these people. Basically, what I'm saying is they're in bed with the companies and they aren't giving fair reviews. Also, that they have this strange amount of nepotism and ego that they have no right to have. Believing that we are ignorant slobs who need to be told what our games are good for us. Even though they don't like good video games, but digress. Because most people don't listen to them anymore. Like, the only time people listen to them is when they, like, expose some sort of evil racket in gaming, which isn't that very hard, let's be honest. That's the only time.
I mean, literally, there was one meme at one point in time about a game reviewer or something like that, and he couldn't even play the fucking game. He couldn't even get through the freaking tutorial. He was that bad at video games.
Yeah, it's just... wow. Basically...
That's why I keep on saying that. They should hire actual gamers. People who have a good track record of playing games.
Yeah, the Cuphead reviewer.
And actually being able to pair.
The problem with these people is that they don't want... They view games and gamers in general as a lesser medium, which is, you know, annoying because, you know, you're supposed to be providing for them. The main thing I'm trying to take away from this is don't attack your audience, and they're not nearly as dumb as you think we are.
Yeah.
So just don't be an a-hole about it. And that seems to be a very hard challenge for a lot of these journalists, you know? To just not be an a-hole and give objective opinions on video games.
And the funny thing is, most of these journalists are actual game journalists. Like, they're not even supposed to be like normal journalists.
Well, they're not, no, and I think that frustrates them because they want a job in anything that's, you know, other than this kind of journalism. But anyway, besides their rambling
I'd
and
give
ranting...
anything to I'd give anything to be a reviewer for video games like that.
I know, maybe you should start doing that in general, Chrono.
Probably.
I mean, more people listen to YouTubers over on Game Journalist than anyone.
True.
One of the most well-regarded NES games ever, and Rare was hoisted up for making one of the greatest games of all time. This was a great thing for Rare, as Battletoads was a franchise they were the sole owners of, which meant they were free to merchandise it as much as they wanted. This first came about with ports of the original game to the Genesis, Game Boy, Amiga 32X, and a version specifically made for the Famicom. What's important to note is that even Rare realized, yeah, we were kinda being assholes for making Rat Race, we're sorry, and made every other version easier. So, to get the name Battletoads into as many houses as possible, and with mass scale breaking and entering off the table, Rare got Dick Animation to draft up a TV show.
Wait, this was a thing?
Rare got Dick!
Yeah, that's an actual animation studio. It's called Deek,
I know,
but it's pronounced Deek, but yes, it's literally D-I-C.
Mm-hmm. D-I-C.
It's a... But yeah, it's along the lines of I say don't attack your fan base because I love you guys. We're gamers like you. We like to have fun games. It's why if I ever do a game on an indie game, I'm going to be a little bit generous, but not too much. But yeah, they're also the people who made Mummies Alive, which is actually really good animation, and I think it was more or less trying to be their own little, you know, Transformer series. Or
which would air on Thanksgiving Day of 1992. This reimagined the classic origin story of the Toads to make them three deadbeat kids in California, scripted by Professor T-Bird and Princess Angelica to become the Battletoads. They get doused in Battletoads juice and can transform into the Toads by shouting, "Let's get warty!" Now how did that not catch on like cowabunga? I call on the powers of eczema! Fans of low-quality animation, bad slapstick comedy, and anything but the Battletoads gave the episode rave reviews, but it faltered with most other people.
I wonder why.
The acclaim the first game received, that would be
they're all named
series
after acting like
peak,
Rash, Zit. I don't
new
remember the last one.
captured people's minds like that game did. Battletoads and Battlemaniacs, Battletoads for Game Boy, even crossing over with Double Dragon didn't seem to light the fire for Toad. Domination! The most important game to come out in the post-NES landscape was Battletoads Arcade, developed by
surprised
Rare
they came
and published
back.
by EA. This game is a fair bit different from the others, not just in its lack of variety in levels, but for the graphical uptick. This game is infinitely more detailed than any that came before it.
Wow.
It goes all in on
It actually
gore,
kind of is.
blood spraying all over the place. This was up there with Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct as amazingly animated Rare games. The problem was, we kind of saw it before. When the big pitch for the next Battletoads game is more of the NES game, people didn't exactly get too excited.
Yeah.
The Battletoads have no character. There's nothing to draw you back.
Sure, yeah, they have to have a bit of
successful
character,
Turtle
even in their
knockoff,
design.
But that doesn't exactly leave you with a lot of places to go. Battletoads made a name for itself by throwing bombs right out of the starting
The
gates,
hidden Battletoad
but despite how much gore is in this game, it felt like there were kitty gloves on. Like, the
Oh.
only way to take the franchise forward was to add gore, and in 1993, arcades were not in short supply of gore.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat.
Failed to move enough units to warrant porting the game, which was awful news to the team porting the game, leading to an SNES version getting canned. From there, Rash, Zitz, and Pimple were relegated to the same
Rash,
trash
Zitz,
heap
and
as every
Pimple.
other TMNT knockoff. Sure, they'd escape for moments at a time, but as quickly as a new Cyborg show would pop up, Apathy was there to knock it right back down. From 1994 all the way to 2016, the most relevant the Battletoads ever were was as a prank call. The most you could hope for was the game's amazing pause theme being included as an Easter egg in a different game like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, but for Battletoads... Battletoad would make his big re-debut as Rash was included in the criminally underrated Killer Instinct.
Why?
He was full of references to the original game, looked great in the grittier 3D art style of Killer Instinct. It was a great test to see if people were still interested in more Battletoads. Not as great of an idea to put him in a game that nobody played as the third wave of DLC. And
Yeah.
In 2018, however, it was
Well, this
finally
review would be
time for
neat
the
again.
big return. Battletoads
Really?
were back, baby! Well, they were on their...
Why is there a weirdly seductive Antoga? I'm not even repeating that, no. Listen, I like Monster Girls. Especially the... You know what, I'm not even gonna say anything, because that's just exposing myself more. Anyway. Yes. Run it a bit.
Their way back.
Run it back. No, I'm not running it back for that.
Even though it was nice to know they were, the hard and fast, no game, no hype, those is the rules was in full swing.
Yeah.
The next year, though, a proper gameplay trailer was released, showing off the promised hand-drawn graphics,
They
3-player
look really
couch
nice
co-op, and
hand-drawn,
the return
though.
of classic features, like the variety
Yeah.
of gameplay styles from the original. And the fans were, oh no,
Oh.
no, people hated
Oh.
this. When people envisioned a brand new Battletoads game, this art style was the last thing a lot of them wanted. People said it looked too cartoony, that it should be 3D, pretty
Really?
like the arcade game, and that this was a disgrace to the legacy. I just want to
What?
point out that the most replayed moment of the trailer was this brief flash of the Dark Queen's redesign. Come on, guys, this is embarrassing. However, when it came down to it, this is how Rare wanted it made. While Toadally Games would be handling the majority of development, Rare was still a very active part of development and wanted this game to
that's
evoke
nice.
the feeling of what Battletoads could have been if they didn't have the limitations of the NES. That didn't stop people from having an intensely negative reaction to the game, becoming the second
surprised.
most hated game of E3 2019.
Really? Wow. That's, surprising. Damn. Also, most
Damn.
disliked was Pokemon
next-
Sword and Shield.
Right next to Pokemon Sword and Shield, too.
I can understand not liking the Pokemon games because they're literally all the same, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Right behind Pokemon Sword and Shield. Oh, did people not like those games? Despite the negative press, the game would eventually release in 2020, accidentally landing right next to the worst possible game to land next to.
What game? Oh! Streets of
Whereas
Rage.
people shouted down Battletoads as not a real follow-up to the original, Streets of Rage 4 was exactly that. A perfect reinterpretation of the original for modern days, and a wonderful showcase of what a modern beat-em-up could be.
Yeah.
Battletoads 2020 reviewed just alright, reaching 6s and 7s for most outlets and fading from
6s
the
and 7
line
is literally the
but
mad
did
number.
it deserve that, to just fade away after so much
Yeah.
work and love went into
Not
it?
bad.
Let's find out.
Yeah, that's
Hopping
fine.
right in and we get Feed the Fantasy, a reintroduction to the beat-em-up style, and we get to see all the quirks that come with it. You have a
Okay.
standard combo light attack, a chargeable heavy swing and launcher on top of a jump and dash. You're able to freely swap between the toads and check out how they
Pork
each work.
stick.
They aren't super different from one another, but just like in the arcade game, Pimple is the heavy-hitting damage dealer,
Alright.
Zitz is the fast combo machine, and Rash
Nice.
lands somewhere in the middle. Of the three, I never really found myself preferring one's playstyle over the other two, but that's a good thing since I enjoy playing as all three. Sometimes I wanted to rack up high combos with Zitz, other times I wanted to smash things with Pimple, and sometimes I wanted to see Rash's really creative moves. If your Toad croaks in the middle of a level while fighting bad guys, they get brought back after 30 seconds, but with about half health. For
Alright.
reference, I played on the medium Toad difficulty. While
Toad
I'd love
difficulty.
to have the validation of weird strangers on the internet by saying I beat Battletoads on Battletoad difficulty, I kinda want to see my family again someday, so I'm not setting aside time to do that.
I kinda wanna see. Did he just turn into a shark? What's everyone doing? Okay, Big Mo Cat. If you want to join in and watch stuff with us, that's fine. You're always welcome.
I really enjoy the combat in this game. It's very button mashy.
Which you
not
should be,
interested
unless
in
it did a
long
thing.
branching combos with a ton of variants, but the whole thing feels so impactful I couldn't get enough of fighting thugs. And don't think that doesn't mean you can't be the friend that holds back everybody else as you do your 200-hit combo. You absolutely can be. It's
Oh.
a good thing, then, that you have a good cast of cronies to use those moves on. These rats are the template for most grunts in the game. A simple attack that can be dodged out of the way of, a block that needs a heavy swing to break, and a death state where they'll stick around once they're out of health so you can send them flying at your leisure. My
Nice.
only problem is that when enemies are blocking, you need the heavy swing to break their guard, but not the heavy swing mid-combo. No, you have to do the standard heavy swing. Save the
Okay.
theatrics for Broadway. We got a job to do. Get far enough into the stage and you square off with the first boss, Pork Shank. He's as
Pork
standard
shank.
a beat-em-up boss as you can get.
Ah.
Wander around the stage, take his lashes, attempt to give them back out in kind, but makes the mistake
Right.
of playing fair and warning us. After sending him running, they roll out the red carpet for the
Oh.
ultra-famous Battletoads, where we tangle with more rats, hoverboard pigs that can fire projectiles, making
Not bad.
them Satan, and a second round
Ugh.
of pork shank. He switches strategies and instead tries to charge at you from across the stage, but forgets about that pesky
Oh.
Y-axis that lets us avoid him for the entire fight. Half a health bar
Yeah.
later and he flees again, but only like 3 feet to the right.
What's the
'cause
pig
final phase
problem?
of the pork shank fight has us fighting the 2 different phases at the same time.
Ah.
This section can be pretty tricky, what with the
Pork
forms shoring up
shanks.
each other's weaknesses, attacking
Eh?
from near and far at the same time. Having vanquished the vaguely meddlesome pork shank, we get our faces carved into the side of a mountain and fly off, which is a thing we could always do.
What?
Forgot we can fly.
Yep, everyone loves us, and now we can fly!
The universe revolves around the Battletoads! Chant with me! We
Uh.
are God! We are God! We are God! What the?
So it turns out that the Battletoads have been living the past 26 years of their lives in a simulated bunker. As once
Oh.
we get out, we realize that nobody cares about the Battletoads and that we have to go get real jobs. I've said this before,
Oh.
but reviving an old character as an out-of-touch loser almost never works.
Yeah.
Nobody who wanted a new Battletoads game wanted to see Rash eating cold dog food out of a can. This framing device never works.
It really doesn't.
Hey guys, I know you're excited for a new Battletoads, but not as excited as we are to show you Rash in a diaper.
What?
I swear this game is good. Please don't go. So
What?
with our lives non-existent, the Toads have to
are
all
you
find
sure?
work, which leads us to menial jobs. Here's where you can really see the game lean into the fact that it's meant to be played with 3 players. Each Toad does a super simple job, and it's the perfect bleed into the phrase of the day. This would be
Oh.
more fun with 2 other people, but it's fine as is. But the lack of
Lack of-
online co-op is a baffling move that crippled the game's success.
Wait.
Whenever you
It
see-
has no online co-op? Why? Aren't they human? I don't know. They probably changed some lore or something. I don't know. They're toad people. Most of the time? I don't know. You're asking me for Battletoad lore. And that's not something I'm willing to waste my time on.
See this sign up in the corner here? Just
But yeah, I can't believe there's not online co-op.
know
That's
that means
insane.
that this would be
Welcome
more
back.
fun with more people.
Also, Big Mama Cat, I saw that you weren't in the collab chat access, so I did give you access if you ever want to join.
It's a super quick
Hmm.
section, but the gag of having Rash prepare autographs for Sea of Thieves is actually really funny. I could go to the fucking Olympics for Rash's section of menial jobs. They may have jobs, but Rash just can't adjust to his new life, so formulates a plan to go find the Dark Queen and beat her up. While Pimple and Sitz don't really want to, seeing how horrible Rash's life is inspires them to saddle up and go find the Queen. This leads us on to the next level, to the Queen, which is based on the reason therapists' paychecks were so high in 1991.
Oh.
Instead of a side perspective like before, these are behind the back and have everything flying directly at you. Toads don't recover after a set period here, though. If they croak, they're out until you hit a checkpoint. This
Damn.
gives you 3 hits to get past long swabs of instant-kill walls, and while it's not as frustrating as the
Insta-kill?
NES version, this iteration of turbo tunnels is still super challenging. Being able to see what comes next does not make this any easier. If anything, it can lead to you psyching yourself out and trying to plan so far ahead you don't see what's in front of you.
This is
is
bad.
made even worse since there's actually a score bonus for near misses, where if you're close enough to a wall when dodging, you get a massive boost. Oh no, incentive to be cocky! Points don't do anything except enrich the soul. You can play it safe, or you can be daring and go for a high score. I also love how the game still lets you swap between Toads even though they all control the exact same. You know what? This really feels like more of a Pimple obstacle. I really gotta start marketing this bad luck as a superpower.
Yeah.
Anybody here want to buy a losing lottery ticket? This section at the end where you need to slip
I wish
through
I had
doors
that
is
super-
incredibly
Well, no, I
tense,
don't. I have that
requiring
superpower.
Perfect timing and positioning to bob and weave through. Eventually, you're gonna need super subtle taps to avoid staining the wall with toad blood. After crashing the bikes, we make our way into the Queen's lair, which is deep inside an abandoned
No problem,
amusement park.
Big Mama
Here we
Cat.
get to see new enemy types, like these tanks that are only vulnerable after they attack, and these
Oh.
electrified enemies that create
Alright.
shockwaves. The stage's carnival aesthetic works super well, both as being a showcase for some fun carnival theming, but also for how dilapidated the whole thing is to show off how much time has passed. It
Alright.
lends itself to some neat set pieces, like zipping back and forth from the foreground to the background on roller coaster tracks, and disabling a lock based on fortune telling. Come on, you should have a basic understanding of the major arcana if you want to play Battletoads.
Oh my
This
god,
level
really?
also emphasizes the importance of the
I
time.
have an understanding
See,
of them,
in
but
this
dear
game,
god.
they bothered to finally acknowledge the fact that these are 3 giant toads and gives you a variety of options about how to use your time in combat. You
Hello,
can pull
big
enemies
mama
in
cat.
with it, grab...
No.
We're watching this. Oh, I need to turn down your volume just a tiny bit.
I don't know how long I have since my mom and I are planning on going out to the aquarium in the Science Museum again.
Oh, that's fine.
items from the background, even
That
use it
sounds
to
like
zip
a lot of
around with
fun.
grappling hooks. A few more battle arenas later, and we finish out
I
the level
keep
with a quick
Pearl
hacking
back
section.
active.
Any game
Oh.
that does not need lock-picking mechanics
I
should
bet
not
you
have
like them, but why?
lock-picking mechanics, but at the very least, this one is enjoyable. We ride the elevator all the way down to,
Stay
so
disabled.
that's how that works. This is the stage where they start to take more advantage of stage hazards. These electrical enemies can walk over these patches of water, and if they attack, the whole area becomes hazardous. The stage is built around not just these guys, but these ice cream vendors that can snipe you, giving enemies the
wonderful.
advantage to zone you out. They can be a real pain to deal with, but once you take out one part of the combo, the other
ice
part should be
cream
pretty
vendors.
easy.
Oh, wow.
Just because
Yeah,
the game
enemy ice
isn't as
cream vendors.
annoyingly frustrating as the original
You
was
know
at
what?
its worst,
You know what, Mick? Guilty Gear. Now.
doesn't mean it's not still a difficult game that can offer a real engaging challenge when it wants to. Just a bit further and we manage to get to the Dark Queen's lair, though we can't get our hands on her just yet since she's using a baby as a shield. She
What?
explains that an alien race has trapped her here for the past 26 years, and seeing as we were stuck for the same time, it's fair to say that the Topians that trapped her trapped us as well. Rash wants to
Okay.
team up with the Dark Queen to go beat up the Topians and get famous again. Zitz was in the last game and remembers that she's evil. That leaves
Yeah.
Pimple as the deciding vote, and he declares Toad Shambo to see what they should do. So this section is as obvious as it looks. Just play rock, paper, scissors with your friends using instruments,
God.
hand puppets, and
Okay.
breakfast equipment.
What the hell?
Now, I was more than ready to get heated over losing a playground game against cheating AI, but when it zooms back out to show the Toads sitting on the floor playing, that got a good laugh. The Guardian keeping the Queen here breaks in to break up the game, though, as now we have to
Guardian.
tackle it head on. This is the first proper boss fight, and we spend the majority of it slapping around the Guardian's eyeballs. Every
Alright.
time you do this, it summons another eye for you to fight, and increases the amount of red eyes that appear to get in the way. It's
Alright.
more than a little disappointing how this boss fight isn't really fighting the boss, rather
Yeah.
some eyeballs that get conjured up in its place. The section with the fists coming down
I
can
wish
be
it
a
was
fair bit
actually
tense,
good.
and batting around the eyes is fun, but I feel like for an enemy this big, you
They
could
should
go a
have
bit
actually been
bigger.
fighting
After
it.
finishing him off, we run off to take his ship while leaving the Dark
Yes,
Queen behind.
spaceship.
The cutscene that follows is wince-inducingly unfunny, and will be played censored to preserve the children that may see it.
Calm. You're a queen. You're unflappable. Suck my f***ing you backstabbing suck my
Oh my god.
Oh my
Let's
god!
talk about writing. Before I say anything, I'll say overall, this game is funny. Not laugh out loud funny all the time, but there are
Oh,
more than
dear.
enough good moments that I'd call it a funny game. But you can't have soaring highs without crushing
Crushing
lows.
lows.
Some
Yeah.
lines in this game are bafflingly unfunny. Like I said, whenever it tries to get self-referential and meta, it usually falls on its face. But this game has a very odd relationship with swearing. Sometimes
Really?
they'll cuss, sometimes they'll censor it out, and sometimes they'll use the most awkward stand-in for curses. It comes off
Why?
really weird, like they
Yeah.
weren't sure if they were allowed to get away with cursing and redirected way
That
too
was
far.
the point.
Leave your-
They want this game to be weird and kooky.
Yeah, but if you try to mix it, it's where... If you do it all at the same time, it makes it confusing to the audience. It's like, okay, are we allowed to swear? Because sometimes it is funnier when you are just covering the swears with bleeps. But other times, no. It just doesn't work sometimes.
Swear words uncensored, you fucking pussies. But like I said, this is a funny game. Sure, there are stinkers, but they're over and done with quick enough, and a funny line is usually right around the corner. Every character is fun to listen to, and the voice cast is entirely responsible for that.
Hey, Link
Ryan
Bros.
Ridley, Echo Kellum, and Shoban Hewlett all do great work in their roles, and I
Oh.
was shocked to learn that Rash was voiced by Eric Bauza, of all people.
Oh.
For those of you who don't know why
Oh.
that's a big deal,
Bugs Bunny! Bugs fucking Bunny!
Really?
so with Fury now in tow, we head off to go find out how to beat the
He's
Topians.
voiced by...
Punch
Speaking
Bugs
of whom, we get to
Bunny.
meet them.
Yeah,
and it was
he
super
apparently is
nice
voiced
of the
by
writers
Bugs
to pile
Bunny.
all the unfunny things onto these two. I'll play their
Well.
one funny line.
What?
What did you do?
Well, I made him 3 inches shorter. Doesn't seem like much, but his entire life will change.
The next chapter of the game is Pride and Prejudice. They're all gonna be like this, aren't
Pride
they?
and Prejudice.
We get to a new planet,
Really?
which sure as hell looks like the last one, and need to meet up with the Queen's old friend Jeff to find a way into the Topian capital city. Zitz, though, starts to get worried about his position now that the Queen's on the team. I mean, he's got to be the Leonardo and the Donatello. That can't be easy.
Uh-oh.
Having been kidnapped in 40% of every Battletoads game ever made, he decides to declare another round of Toad Shambo to see whose plan they go with.
Oh my
This
God.
isn't much more than an interactive joke, but at least it's a funny one. It's also the last time they used
Oh,
Toad
she's
Shambo
involved.
in the whole game, which makes it even funnier that they had two good ideas and dumped it after that. So we meet up with Jeff, and in his haste to prove that he's the boss, Zitz ends up knocking him out. The
Oh.
only way to get Jeff to tell us the way into Topian City, aside from hitting him more, is to quell the warring tribes of the planet, the gymnasts and the lumberjacks.
What?
Our trip starts off with a new beat-em-up level.
Gymnasts
Tons of
and
new enemies,
lumberjacks?
Topian cops with extending punches,
What the
healers
hell?
who you need
What
to
a
stick in place to
combo
stop them
of,
from resurrecting
enemies.
dead enemies, and
Yeah.
these throwers who are constantly on guard and interrupting combos.
911, what's your emergency?
Why would those two people be in the
Since this
same
game was more of
place?
the solid beat-em-up action, I
Look, they're
finally
all
want to
just
take the
gym
time
people.
to address
What
the
the
art
hell?
style. It's way more cartoonish than the other game in the series with
It's
an
like
art style,
day for
but while it
the
doesn't look
gym,
like that one,
for
I
the
still think
log
it looks really
people.
good.
Mm.
The hand-drawn animation for everything is incredible. You can see the hard work that went into every action, from the toads themselves, the backgrounds, the enemy animations. It makes the game feel really alive. I
can see
massively
that.
prefer that they went for this route rather than something akin to Killer Instinct. I don't want to platform around with this guy. He looks like he's gonna eat me. As for people who say this looks like a Flash game, what the hell Flash games were you playing, and where can
that
8-year-old
one
me
look
find
like,
them?
what's it
I will
called?
question the reasoning behind putting
Yeah, what'd you say?
Gremlin? Was that movie Gremlins with the green thing with the spiky mohawk guy?
No.
Does anyone remember that movie Gremlins where it's like a fluffy teddy bear turns to green scaly?
Yeah. Oh yeah, those
monstrosity?
are the gremlins.
Yeah, that animation looked like the gremlin. I'm sorry. To my brain, that was a gremlin, not a toad.
Oh
these
God.
puzzles
brain's
in
a
the middle of a
gremlin.
stage. You gotta get an electrical surge from one side of the door to the other, and normally I'd be able to do this, but I'm kind of in beat-em-up mode right now. Just playing some couch bro-op with the boys, and okay, which one of us beat the witness? I can't do this. Alright,
Which one
finally
of us
made
beat
it
the
past,
witness?
And you know what? I think I hate
Oh.
Battletoads now. By the end of the stage, you've managed to make it all the way through a processing plant and into a gift shop with a pretty neat
Oh.
secret. Using the prices of all the merch in the store, you unlock a door for a secret thing. I have played this video game 3 times now, and I still have no idea what they do. Once we finally get
Really?
out of there, it's on to the first test to stop the warring tribes as we take on the top lumberjack, Axley.
What?
This boss fight is a mess of
Top
missiles.
lumberjack.
You gotta duck and dodge around them.
He has
usually
saws
making the whole
in
field
him.
Completely unsafe, except for brief openings.
Yeah.
Once he's done
That
with the
makes
battle,
him the
try
top
cleaning you with an
lumberjack.
axe that sends out shockwaves
He doesn't need
and
no
rolling out
equipment.
logs
He
to
is
pull
the
you over.
equipment.
All of this makes
He's
for
made
a
of
super
wood.
fast-paced fight with little room for error. Most of the time,
Exactly,
only a
he's
small
the
patch of the
equipment.
screen is free from danger,
God.
and it's not long before that gets filled up with rockets. The longer the fight goes on, the more he'll start to mix attacks as you have to hop over logs to safe
think
areas
he's
that are about
throwing
to be
his
filled with
children at
missiles.
you?
It's a tough as nails
I
encounter, but
hope
just like
not.
the good levels from the NES game, it's nothing that practice can't overcome.
They're
For the
animated
second
children.
one, that's earned in
So
the
they're the same
Trials of
color
the
as
Pummel
him.
Horse. To earn the Gymnast's Medal, you have to do a short series of mini-games back-to-back, including archery, ball bouncing, and Pose Me. This section has a massive feeling of about it, and if you're playing
Yeah.
a beat 'em up with your friends, how likely is it that they're going to want to sit down and play these mini-games? If there was
Yeah.
anything to this section, I'd complain about it, but come on, it's only 3 minutes long. I can beat this section faster than I microwave food. It's not that big a deal. So we got both the
guess.
medals. We're at the peace treaty. Everything's going groovy, except I did forget that we are a moron, so Zitz
Yeah.
ends up eating one of the servers. The whole thing breaks down from there as they realize that there are 3 people behind Jeff that have been puppeteering him the whole time. This section has us riding away on Jeff's body, walking over gaps and switching sleds depending on the terrain. And may I be the first to say, fuck! This
Whoa.
section's hard. To survive on each different type of terrain, you have to hold down a button that corresponds to it, which at first is pretty fun, but as the section goes on, you have to swap super quickly to stay on the higher paths. However, the game is really forgiving with checkpoints, so while you
that's
may
good.
be getting sent back a lot, you're never getting sent back too far. On top of that, the track never changes, meaning that memorization helps you out here just like it did in the NES version. The whole thing would feel a lot better with 2 other players, everybody manning a button, but even with no friends, the game is still pretty enjoyable. We finally make it back to the ship and escape the planet with Jeff. There's an extended joke here of Jeff parroting the opinions of people who didn't like the art style change, and has a game ever making fun of its detractors ever made the developers look good? I guess.
No, I can't think of a single time where that's worked out.
Yeah.
Making fun of the detractors just makes you seem petty. Because, well, you're being petty.
Yeah.
I mean, pettiness can be amusing to the right people, but not to the majority.
Not to the people that you're angling at, not to the people that want to play your game.
I get that a lot of criticism for the game was only skin deep, but this wasn't the way
Actually
to
use
address
the
it.
product.
And I was real angry about the changes you made, but then you portrayed me as a crybaby who pisses his pants, and
Yeah,
that really changed my perspective.
that doesn't change
So
anyone's
with the map to
perspective. They
Topian
just
City, we
prove
got
them
everything
right.
we need and blast off for Chapter 3, the Pimple Things in Life.
I hate that was a good one.
On our way to go beat up the Topians, we get crashed into by a loudmouth trucker who sends everybody on the ship into a blind murderous fury.
Okay,
Everyone
of course.
except for Pimple. He doesn't want any
I
more
hate the
senseless
Gremlin
fighting,
movie.
but given who he's aboard the ship with, I don't see that
Coming
happening.
home.
I'm talking about murder.
He ditches
What?
the team to go blow off some steam while the rest go to kill the trucker. This whole chapter was a massive shock to the system when I first played because the whole thing has a 0 beat-em-up
They went to
section.
go
The
blow off the
chapter's
trucker.
divided up between a twin-stick shooter with Rash, Zitz, and the Queen, while Pimple goes off to do a puzzle platform.
Road rage to
To
an
some,
extreme.
this is way too radical a shift for a Battletoads game to take. And if you go in expecting a beat-em-up and get this, I get
Yeah.
it. But beat-em-ups can easily overstay their welcome, and when the core combat is as simple as it is here, I don't blame them for taking an extended break from it.
Yeah, I
commend
can
them,
understand.
Not just for how much of a departure it is, but for how different the 2 sections are. The
I
Pimple
guess so.
sections are honestly a really entertaining experience. Platforming is simple and serene with good controls, but still the option to rush through things if you want to. Jumping out of a roll gives you tons of speed, and chaining them together through death traps is super fun. The puzzles added later on aren't so brain-busting.
I mean,
that
it
you
looks
get
like the
stuck,
Rayman
but still
games, I'll be
requires
honest,
some
the
level of
newer
critical
ones.
thinking, like how to drag these boxes along to not trigger death traps.
Yeah, that's what
the
I was
music as
thinking
well,
whenever
not
I
just
saw
here,
this.
but in
Every,
the whole game is
DVA for
fantastic.
Batman.
Battletoads music is a hard legacy to live up to, but I think this game
I
does a
mean,
great
the original
job. For
Battletoads,
the
I
most
think,
part,
were
the
a
game's
GBA game.
soundtrack is hard
Or no,
rock
they were
with plenty of
NES.
original tracks mixed with homages
Yeah,
to
they were
previous
NES.
games. The Pimple levels, though, are so calm and gentle that they lull you right into the more placid and easygoing gameplay style of these sections. I think the best part of the whole chapter, though, is that they juxtapose these puzzle platforming sections with
Oh,
twin-stick shooter portions. Don't screw around. This is not Galaga, this is not Gradius, this is full-on bullet hell. You're gonna be overwhelmed with projectiles every
Oh, wow.
second of
Oh,
these
wow,
stages,
this
and it's
is bullet
insanely
hell.
tight to try to maneuver
Toho
around.
would be proud.
Enemies will fire endless waves of bullets, homing drones, and create barriers to cut off large swaths of the level. These levels are insanely tough. There is so much to keep track of at any given moment. You'll need complete and undivided attention to try to get through with the measly 5 hits you have. You also have a directional dodge that lets you harmlessly dash through bullets, but there's a great chance that wherever you dodge to is about to be filled with even more. The game pits you against nearly unbeatable odds, which makes it all the more satisfying when, after getting killed by these boomerang shot guys, you finally get a shot at the boss, which...
oh, dear
well,
God.
looks more like a pissed-off light bright instead of a game
That
level,
would make
which
me
is
a
never a
rage
good
quit the
sign,
game.
but escaping
Oh,
certain
wow.
death by the skin of your teeth is endlessly satisfying. I can't stress enough how this whole chapter may be the funniest the game ever is, because you ping-pong back and forth from pleasant gameplay in the Pimple section to fighting for your life during the spaceship section. At the end of Pimple's search for enlightenment, it seems like we've got it all figured out. We've got brand new friends, a brand new home, and a brand new god.
Jason is the one true God.
What?
After realizing we've been roped into a death cult, Pimple battles like a toad, which leads us to losing it. You play
Oh.
as Pimple and 2 of the Dark Queen's creations, fighting off cultists with punches, photos, and knocking over trees.
What?
It'd be meaner to tell him he's not helping, just let him have it. It's another
Environment
section like
isn't
the
the
Olympics
death
one from
cult.
before,
Gotta
just
love it.
swapping back and forth between
Yeah.
the 3 sections whenever necessary. I wish I was 3 people so I could enjoy this section like it was meant to be. Just like before, there isn't a lot to talk about, but smacking around cultists is a big step up in terms of fun compared to bouncing a
Oh my
ball.
God.
Pimple's
Yeah.
rampage sets off his emergency beacon, telling the other toads to go pick him up. in the opposite direction we were heading. Flying through a wave
Wonderful.
of enemy ships damages the main control system and requires us to reboot it manually, and...
Oh no.
Okay, this does look pretty daunting,
Oh,
and...
shit.
What is it?
Truth
What would
be
it
told, I
even
did
do?
piss myself the first time I saw it, but it's not as bad as it looks. At the top is a series of icons corresponding to panels. Find the right
Okay.
panel and do the minigame to clear it. This is the most... game there is. Playing with friends, this is pulse-pounding, but a lot of fun as you scramble to look around and try to complete whatever you can without losing track of time. On your own,
Okay.
though, this is rat race levels of pain. The visual overload is enough to unsettle you from the get-go.
Yeah, I
The
can't
balance
tell what
of
I'm
these
looking
games
at
on your
here.
own without
That's
help is a
too much for me
nightmare.
to look
the games
at
are
when I'm
stupid simple
gaming.
and easy to get
Yeah.
past, but the nerves are likely to get to you and make you
That's
mess up. It's a
too
lot
much.
like Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes or
Yeah.
Bomb Core from Jackbox Party Pack 2,
Yeah.
where you spend half the game playing the game and the other half screaming at everybody else to stop playing like a moron. But when you're playing single player, I can scream as loud as I want. I'm not gonna listen. This often leads to frustration, especially with the temperature gauge. This looks easy up until the point that
Oh.
you realize that the sensitivity is insanely high and you
Oh,
can't pass the time
no.
to set it to and can't get it no matter how hard you try. Trying to heat up a cup of coffee killed so many runs. I tried to have as much fun as I could on my own, but you need multiple people to make this manageable. So we've managed to find Pimple, but he's still a little heated about the constant mistreatment we put him through. After calming him down, we realize we have no way of getting off planet with a broken ship, and the Queen threatens to introduce a crafting system, but
Oh, no.
thankfully the cops show up to arrest us. We get dragged in front of the Topians as the Queen makes her grand declaration of revenge, which is met with disintegration. Without any other options, the Toads are forced to kowtow to the Topians' demands, and the three are made into celebrities.
Okay.
Crash is happy, but the other two realize they're just propaganda pieces used to make the Topians look good. They turn
Yeah.
people into dust. Why do they need public relations? After 6 months, the Queen finally walks off, having her particles scattered across the solar winds and reforms inside one of the Topian leaders. They
Oh.
have names, but I'm morally against learning them. She
Morally
manages to rile up the
against.
rest of the spirits trapped inside him into staging an escape by punching his organs until he dies. This ends up working too well, as he takes medicine which threatens to disintegrate us, but not in a funny way like before, as now we have to go through gut reaction. This
Oh.
level is actually a send-up to Rat Race from the original Battletoads, which,
Oh.
alongside famine and plague, I'd say is one of the worst things to ever happen to humanity. You have to run down along a track, dodging spikes and traps with a wall of
Well
acid
then.
creeping down to kill you. You can dash forward to break through walls and get a boost of speed, and hold up on the controller to float down through long shafts of spikes. This whole section requires the most precise
What I'm
platforming
getting
of the
from
entire
this series
game. You
is,
have to be extra
if you
careful, not
it's
just
gonna
to
give you
avoid
rage
damage, but to
issues.
make sure to always
Yeah,
be
this game is
fast,
obviously
so
gonna give you.
fast. This makes sections where you're
This is
stuck in
gonna give
place
you
and
as
have to
much
dash through
rage as
platforms to move them
playing
into
what's
place
it
extra
called,
tense because you
Elden
barely have any
Ring.
time to figure it out.
Not as
Later
bad
on in the
as
stage, they start
Elden
adding
Ring,
traps
because
like
Elden Ring you
platforms that
learn
move
how to
down
do
towards
things.
the
You aren't
acid, bounce
platforming and
back
feeling
move
like
you
you're
back
being
up to
cheated.
platforms you already passed,
Unless you're
and
fighting
shafts where
Melania,
you
then
have
you're
to
being
avoid
cheated.
spikes altogether, or have to fall down a shaft full of them. The tenseness of this
Those
whole
will work.
level is off the charts as you just narrowly skirt past certain death, and it
So
makes
if
it
you
one of the most
value your
entertaining
blood
levels in the
pressure,
whole
do not
game.
play this
So once the queen
series.
is spat
Probably,
back
yeah.
up by Topian on the right, they try to get the Toads to kill her for sport. Zitz and Pimple won't do it, but Rash can't decide between Fame and his friends. He says he'll kill the Dark Queen, but only after the Topians give her powers back. How do you rule the universe and be this dumb? We fall down a big hole to the first beat-em-up section in God knows how long, and even then, I think they got a little ahead of themselves. This is
Yeah.
a section desperately surviving friendly fire with beat-em-up-like characteristics.
Oh,
You
wow.
fight off Topian cops while the Queen summons tornadoes to help you out. Except the tornadoes come out all over the place, so it's super hard to keep fighting enemies since the tornadoes knock
Why
them
not
around the
just
place,
knock them, have
and they
them
can
hurt you?
as well. Oh, this section sucks. So with the
Because
plan of
this
murdering
game
us
is
not working
designed
out,
to
they
make
decide to
you
force us onto the
rage.
hover bikes
I
and
don't
let
know
me
why.
control its
Probably
course.
falls
You kind of
asleep.
get the feeling that by the end, the
Yeah.
budget was catching up to them, since instead of moving backgrounds like the last hover bike section, this one has a static background.
Okay.
You know those shots in movies where they're in a car, but they're just moving the background to make it look like it's moving?
Yeah.
It feels like that. It's just as enjoyably tense as the last time we were on the bikes, but with even tighter jumps that need you to read patterns quickly to get past, and no
Oh, no.
checkpoints meaning you need to do the whole thing in one shot. Don't for a second think that that makes up for the Topians doing running commentary over the whole level. It's finally time to get revenge on them for being painfully unfunny with a boss fight against the Topians.
Okay.
The boss alternates between fighting Topian on the left and Topian on the right, with righty having energy attacks like firing energy balls and lightning bolts, with lefty trying to whip you and creating earthquakes.
All right.
This fight is a thrill, even if the last couple levels were
it's actually a good fight then.
down. This fight makes up for it in how you have to adapt on the fly to new attacks and conserve your Toad's health by constantly swapping out. Eventually, when you deal enough damage, the pair starts to fight you both at once, so when one is resting up, the other can attack you without worry. I'd like to say I had some sort of grand strategy or elegant solution for how to win the fight, but I kind of just got lucky with Toad respawn rate and kept throwing them at the bottom until it went away. Once they're almost dead, we get a weird
beam struggle
kinda cutscene where all the Toads help the Queen win a beam struggle. Remember when I
Charge
said that
up.
the budget was running out? The budget ran out. One
Oh,
final cutscene
no.
where Rash gives all the credit for saving the galaxy to the Dark Queen and a sequel hook
And,
later,
I
and
think
the
it's
game is
time
done.
for me to head
16
out.
million
I'm gonna
points,
head out.
motherfucker.
Alright.
16 million. Look at these
Have fun.
schmucks. Do you think they have...
Have a wonderful day.
You too. But yeah, if you need to head out, don't worry. Hey, there you go.
Impressive
I
point
was
totals?
right.
No.
Yeah. This game seems like a slog to get through.
The more and more I played this game, the worse and worse I felt about the reputation it had. I had a blast with the beat-em-up sections, I loved the art style, the music, the writing, except when it was bad, then it was bad, but it
Then it was
usually
bad?
isn't, but when it is, I really enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
I won't lie, I kinda went into this video for a layup.
Okay.
Yeah, just play the Battletoads reboot, make some CalArt jokes, beep, beep,
Yeah.
video over, but having played it, I really wish this game got more of a fair shake because it really does
Really?
have a lot to offer, and if you have the chance, I totally endorse it. Shame it is that a sequel isn't very likely because I'd love to see what they could do for a follow-up. Don't do this, though.
Yeah. That was gross. Well then,
Yeah.
Fable, I said Fable. Chrono, what did you think of the Battletoads?
Seems interesting enough.
Yeah. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you guys later. Have fun, guys.